we can get started. So welcome today to how to run Facebook and Instagram ads effectively. My name is Jennifer Baker, as some of you know, and some of you I don't know yet. So my name is Jennifer Baker. I've got a wonderful team, a part of JBC Pushing Digital Boundaries. My team is Werda, Nady, and Vish. Nady is currently working behind the scenes. She will be moderating the chat and managing all of your questions. So as we're getting started today, feel free to use this opportunity to introduce yourself in the chat. You can put your social media accounts. You can share our web link. We have around 75 people or so who will be joining us today in the session. So learning objectives. So what are we going to get out of today's session? And for those of you who know me, I do teach at St. Lawrence College. So I'm all about making sure you get the tools you need to make your social media successful. So by the end of today's live training, you are going to be learning how to run ads targeting effectively. And we're going to be talking about different tools like retargeting as well as new audience targeting. We will also talk about special ad categories, and that's something I've added in because I think it's very important for individuals to know. And we're also going to be talking about A/B tests and talking about testing different visuals and text in your Facebook and Instagram ads. So as we go through today's session, you probably are going to have questions. So feel free to use the chat to ask your questions. I will have 2 periods for questions, and Nady will be kind of presenting those questions to me halfway and at the end of the session. Okay. So I'm very excited to be here. I'm excited to talk about Facebook ads and all the things that go along with it. For those of you who have been to a session before, you do know that I will show you the platform live. So behind my PowerPoint, I've got Facebook Ads Manager up. So I will sometimes shift from the PowerPoint presentation over to the Facebook Ads Manager. So who has run a Facebook ad before, or Instagram ad, or a Meta ad before? You can either I don't say hands up, but you can say yes in the chat, or you can say no, or sometimes people say, I don't know. So Tanya has done Facebook Meta ads. Tammy has. Tamara hasn't yet, maybe soon. Hilda has. Jamin has. Louise. So you've got a great foundation. Simon, only a little. So we're going to build on that foundation of knowledge today. All right, Carrie's done a few. So thank you everyone for sharing. So within Meta Ads Manager, there's 3 main targeting options. There's what's called saved, which is kind of a strange word, I have to admit. There is custom, and there is lookalike. And we're going to talk about these in depth today. Oftentimes I find when people have done Facebook ads in the past or Instagram ads, they're only aware of the saved audiences. And I'll explain that as we get to that point. So the saved audiences are built upon demographics, interests, and behavior. And you're thinking, what does this mean, Jennifer? I don't know what this means. So if you've ever run an ad, and maybe it was a boosted post, maybe it was a promoted post, and you said, I want this to go to people in Toronto, 30 plus, who are female, who like cats or birds. That's a saved audience. So we're going to talk about this a little bit more. So the example that I have up here, and I do want to get into depth once I present all of this, is Toronto plus 25 miles. So this is what most people are familiar with when they're getting into Meta ads. They say, oh, I can target people in a specific geographic location. So in this case, I just put Toronto plus 25 miles. I've got an age range of between 40 and 60. I've chosen women, and I've added one detailed audience of camping as an interest. So Meta estimates that my audience size is between 224,000 and 263,000 based on those criteria. So that is the most basic audience that you can create on Meta. Okay. Now we're going to start to build on this concept. So I'm going to show you a few additional features and then I'm going to show you live. Okay. So this is your first saved audience. Now, where people often run into trouble is this idea and this concept of interest. So what they will do, they'll say, oh, I'm going to put, or my audience is people interested in camping, and then canoeing they add in, and then kayaking they add in. But what they don't understand and what they fail to notice is that as you continue to add an interest, it becomes an or. So what that means is I've got people in Toronto, 40 to 60 female who have an interest in camping or kayaking or canoeing. So rather than refining their audience, they're actually expanding it and perhaps making it too broad. Okay. So what happens is people start to put lots and lots and lots of interest in here, and then it becomes a lot of or. So too many, too broad. And this is one of the big mistakes that I often see. So I'm going to show you a few different ways to make sure you refine this to keep this a very clean and crisp audience. Now, I do admit a lot of the important things within Facebook and Meta are very small and they're very gray and they're difficult to find and see. And this is one of them. So I have highlighted it in a red box here. It says, and also match. So this detailed targeting here, I still have camping. We're just going to use that example. But now I've chosen narrow and must also match. Okay. So what this means is I want to find people in Toronto, 40 to 60 female, who have an interest in camping and coffee. So it's an and. So they have to meet both criteria to fall within this audience. So if you notice, the estimated audience size is now about half. So it's 119,000 to 140,000. Okay. So see what that's done. It's taken this really big audience of people who like camping, and now I just want to find coffee people. Maybe you make specialty coffee for campers or easy to pack in, pack out, or low waste, or whatever the case may be. So this is one big piece. So when possible, try to narrow your audience. And then the other thing that you can do, which I'm going to use my favorite example here. The other thing you can do is actually exclude people from your audience. So in this example, we're using the same criteria, but I want to remove people out of the audience. So I'm using camping as kind of my main component here, but I want to remove anybody who also has an interest in kayaking. So I'm a camper. I want to find people who are camping, but I don't want anyone who has an interest in kayaking. Okay, so now I've taken them out of my audience. So maybe it's because my business focuses on canoeing, or maybe it's stand-up paddleboarding, or some other reason. So again, my audience has been reduced again, and it's been further refined. So I've got an estimated audience size of 175,000. So again, we started with a really big audience of people camping, and we've done different ways to refine that and make that smaller. Okay, so I do want to show you this example in the ads manager. So pardon me while I move that across. So this is your ads manager. This is the wizard behind the curtain. And this is just an unused ad account that we have. So what you're going to do to make your first saved audience is you're going to tap on all tools when you're in your ads manager. And sometimes it pops up in these first 6 bubbles, and sometimes you have to scroll down like we do. So let's go down to audiences here. And then within your audience, I'm going to tap on create audience and I'm going to go to saved audience, which is a little bit counterintuitive because there's nothing saved yet. So before you create any type of advertising, you do want to start to look at your audiences and your target audiences. So what you can do here is look at people living in a specific location. So I want people specifically in, and maybe I'll use Ottawa this time. Ottawa, Ontario. And then you can see that radius. You can make that small, down to 17 kilometers or up to 80. So you can change that radius, or you can choose current city only. So either one will work. Depends on who you're targeting. So let's just keep it at city within 17 kilometers here. You can also add multiple cities here. So let's add in, I'll just say Kingston, that's where we are. So now I've got 2 bubbles that I want to target 2 cities. So you can have multiple cities in here. The other way that you can target is postal code. So you can do it's not bringing up mine right now. K7M. There it is. K7M. So you could do a postal code. And you can also do a drop pin. So if you've got a place or you're located in maybe an area where there's not a big city, you can always drop a pin. Okay, so you can target those locations based on those 3 criteria. So geocode, postal code, city or town. And then you can also do the inverse. So you can always exclude. So if you want to exclude people in Toronto for whatever reason, we can do that. So you can exclude cities, postal codes, geocodes, so on. Okay. So let's go through and do a little bit further targeting with age and demographics. So let's do 30 to 50-year-old men. I usually put in English. So depending on, I usually say the language in which the ad is written. So if the ad is written in English, target people who speak English. And, if you're doing an ad written in French, target people who speak French. Just out of I'd say a courtesy more than anything. And then under detailed targeting. So this is where I want you to pay attention. So this detailed targeting, let's do hiking. So if I drop in a very broad word here, I've got hiking, I can see trails, equipment, boots, different societies, and so on. You think, Jennifer, I don't really know what is going to be best. So I'm just going to grab this hiking trails, and then I'm going to let Meta do a little bit of work here. So I've added in hiking trails, and then what I can do is go down to suggestions. So then it's going to give me similar categories within here. So mountaineering, camping, backpacking, and so on. So again, you can add more in here, but remember that this is an or, hiking trails or outdoor recreation. Now, for those of you saying, well, where's this exclude? Don't mind Facebook while it does this. This is pretty normal if you can see this shimmering it's doing. This exclude and narrow audience are those 2 pieces that I was talking about that I want to bring your attention to. So narrowing the audience, you want people who like hiking, outdoor recreation, and maybe this mountaineering, Mountain Dew. You want, it's always funny. Maybe mountain biking. Let's just pick this. So now I want people interested in outdoor rec, hiking trails, and mountain biking. So maybe there's a new trail, there's a new group or society or organization. Okay. And then you can also exclude. So maybe you want to get rid of people who have an interest in specific pieces. So exclude people who match, let's say, what could be something? Maybe it is they like Mountain Dew. So you maybe promote water or healthy eating. So you want to get rid of people who drink Mountain Dew, maybe, for example. So now we've created a very refined audience. And if I scroll back up to the top, it's going to give me this kind of summary. So it's got 76,000 to 90,000 estimate based on these locations, excluding Toronto, the age, gender, language. We're excluding people who like Mountain Dew, but they have an interest in hiking trails or outdoor rec, and they have an interest in mountain biking. Okay. So that is how you start to do that. Okay. All right. So that is that example. So let's bring this back up here. Well, that's your first piece. So those are your saved audiences. You can have many of those. You can have up to 500 of those if you so choose, and if you have that many audiences. So rather than creating a new audience every time you go to create an ad, you can save these all. So it could be different demographic breakdowns. It could be different target audiences based on the products and services that you offer. The next type is called a custom audience. And this one is really exciting. I really like this one. So these are defined groupings of individuals who have interacted with your business. So this could be your Facebook page, this could be your Instagram account, or this could be your website. There's a lot of other options, but for the sake of today's webinar, we're just going to talk about the three. So these custom audiences, and here's all the options here, are people who have shown an interest. You could even consider calling them a warm lead. They've been on your website, they've looked at your profile on Instagram, so you want to get in front of them again. So oftentimes this is called retargeting or remarketing. And you may experience this as a consumer yourself, be it that maybe you've look something up on Google or you've looked something up on Amazon, and then the ads start popping up and you're like, did I say this out loud or did I Google this? Like, how does it know? That's remarketing, and that's what you can do as a business owner as well. So let's talk about a few of these examples. So the website, so this is done and completed through what's called the Meta Pixel. So what it will do, it will track website visitors, it will track website visitors, full stop. You can target people based on the entirety of your website, so every page on your website, or it can be as niche as a specific product page on your website. So it can be as big as you want or as small as you want. And for those of you who have ever been served an ad and you think, I looked at that t-shirt or I looked at that item and now it's being shown to me, those are all remarketing that's happening in the background. So what this will do, it uses the Meta Pixel. You can track all your website visitors or a specific web page. And this retention, it means it can go back to 180 days. So that's 6 months that it can basically look back to and you can remarket back to. So that can be anywhere from 1 to 180 days. Now, oftentimes people will say to me, well, what's best? Like, do I remarket all 6 months worth of people who've been on my site? What do I do? So oftentimes I'll tell people it is based upon your client acquisition. How long does it take for a consumer to make a purchase decision with you? We have someone from Rebel Ford. So how long does it take for someone to buy a vehicle? Is it one day they, check you out on the website and they're coming in the next day to buy a vehicle, or do they look for weeks and weeks and weeks? Versus we've got somebody in retail, clothing retail, when somebody sees something online like a t-shirt, do they come in the next day to purchase it, or do they take 6 months to purchase it? So this retention will be based upon your own business model and that purchase decision. Now, I want to say I said some crazy words. I said metapixel. So I will show you how to find this metapixel and what to do with it. So it's basically a piece of code that sits on your website and it will track all of those visitors. And this is what it looks like on the Business Manager. It almost looks similar to Google Analytics, where you can see the website traffic and visitors. So you can see here just the website traffic over a period of time. So those are all the people that you can target, and that will be in that specific audience for you. And now Facebook, this one's a fun one. Facebook and Instagram are kind of fun. And people don't know that you can do this. So you can target people who have engaged with your Facebook page or Instagram account. And that retention can go back to 365 days. So an entire fiscal year. So if somebody looked at my Facebook page, what is today? April 16th. Well, no, today's 14th. But if they looked at it April 16th, they're still in my audience and I can still remarket to them. So there's a few different actions that you can use for remarketing. So that could be people who like or follow you. That could be people who've engaged with you. So if they've liked or commented or shared some content, it could be people who've simply visited your page. Maybe they get there and they're like, I don't want to be here. Or maybe they do want to be there. So you can target those people. Can target people based on if they've sent you a message, so a DM, or if they have saved any type of your content. So this is anyone on your Facebook page, and you can have multiple, you can add multiple into this audience. So if you're a business who runs multiple Facebook pages, often I find this with franchises and franchisees, they, operate multiple, pizza just comes to mind. So let's pretend if you are owning those multiple franchisees, you could include all of those pages in one audience here. So the same thing exists for Instagram as well. So this can go back an entire fiscal year, you can go back 365 days, or it can be as small as 1 day. The actions are slightly different again, because Facebook and Instagram are different platforms. So it could be things like they follow your account, they've engaged with you, they've visited you, they've sent a message, saved a post, or an ad from you. So again, if you do manage multiple Instagram accounts, you can include them in this audience. All right. Let's see the next thing here. So now we're going to go back to the Meta Ads Manager and we're going to get into our audiences. And we're going to create a custom audience. So these sources have continued to change. I'd say in the last 6 months, I've seen the on Facebook listings added, the shopping added as well. I don't want to get into that today just based on time. So let's start with your website. Oh, it wants me to make a pixel. So I don't have a pixel installed, so that's why you see the red little button here. But this is giving you the idea of what you can do. So if nothing else, go home today and make sure those pixels are installed on your sites so that you can start tracking. Even if you think, Jennifer, hey, I'm not going to do any ads for the next, 3 to 4 months. It's, not on my timeline or not in my budget. That's okay. But you want to be collecting that data if you want to use that next quarter, for example. So once you've selected your source, you can go down to website visitors, and then you can even say specific pages. So if it's a specific blog that you want, a product that you want, this is where you can really, really refine. And again, it can be broad, but it can also be very defined as well. So the retention, you can be minimum of 1 or maximum of 180. And then when you get into naming all of these audiences, I would recommend naming conventions so that you don't get lost in your own content, in your own audiences. So you want to say website activity 180 days, or giving it some criteria here. Okay. So that's your website audience. Let's go into Facebook. Now, what I love about Facebook and Instagram, which are slightly different, is you don't have to do, oh my goodness, you don't have to do anything. It's already collecting that data for you to use. So under this Facebook page audience, these are the options that you can use, like follow page, engaged, visited. And then you can also layer the actions as well, which is why I kind of wanted to show you live. So you could say include more people, the same page, and then people who've saved a post. So you can start to layer all of these options as well. Okay. And then again, you're going to save it. Make sure it's in a convention that you're going to understand. next week when we're out of this webinar. Okay. And that's Facebook. And then our last one is Instagram. Make sure, okay, we'll just use this. So events, again, you can choose any of these, people who visited your profile. So for those of you who do creeping on Facebook and Instagram, and then you think, how do they know that I've been on their account or their page? This is the creeping. The creepers have been creeped. So now we've got the professional people who visited up to 365 days, and then you can include as well. All right, we're almost there. We're almost at kind of halftime here. Is that a sports term? That's a sports term. I'm not a sports person. So now that we've got our custom audiences created, so website, Facebook, Instagram, when you go to include them in your ad, you can actually narrow them even further. Because remember, we're getting everybody who's been on your website or everybody who's been on your Facebook page and everybody who's been on your Instagram account, but they may not be in your audience. And you think, okay, no, everyone's in my audience. And I'm going to say, no, they're not. So if you sell a product that you cannot ship, maybe across borders, or just generally cannot be shipped, or maybe you're a restaurant and people physically have to come to your restaurant in Smiths Falls, for example, you want to make sure you're spending your dollars effectively. So in here, I've included my custom audience. So I always use the naming convention. So I've just blanked out the client name, website 180 days. So we're doing the website, anybody who's been there for 180 days. But I only want them if they live in Toronto. So see what I've done? I've taken this big audience of people who've been on my website and then said, Facebook, yeah, of all the people who've been on my site on Facebook or on my website, I only want people in Toronto. So that's how you can further narrow it and really be effective with your dollars. Because again, it's great that maybe people in Australia have seen your content and they like you, but are they going to be customers? Maybe if you can ship to Australia, but maybe not if you're maybe a local diner, for example. Does that make sense for everyone? All right, one more audience type, and then we're going to take break time. Halftime, break time, question time. All right, the last one is your lookalike audiences. So these ones are a really cool concept. It reaches people based on who Meta believes will be in your audience. So it looks at your existing followers and people who like your page and account. And then it says, based on these criteria, we think this grouping of people may also be interested in you, your product, and your business. So with this, you do need to have a custom audience. So those custom audiences we've just created, it's looking for those. So you can't do the lookalike without the custom. So you need to do the custom first, and then you can get to lookalike. So what this will do, generally you want that 1% audience. So that's going to be the most refined, closest match for you. These are really great for e-commerce that you're trying to expand in a larger area, because that's exactly what it's doing. So it looks at areas across Canada and US, or different continents across the world as well. So it can work really well. Now, which audience is best? So we've talked about saved, we've talked about custom, and we've talked about lookalike. But which one is best? And I'm going to say it will depend on your business model. It depends on what you're selling, and it depends on your products. And each audience is really used for different purposes. So some individuals in this session today might say, oh, I could use all of those. That's great. I'm e-commerce. And then some of you say, I have a physical retail store that only services a specific geographic area. So they're very different people. So that, I think Tamara's here. Yeah, Tamara's here. So Tamara has, I'll say, an organic retail shop in Kingston, Collective Joy, I feel, Collective Joy. And she services a specific area. Tamara, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think you're shipping to Vancouver. I don't think, right? So you're probably trying to nurture all the people in the Kingston area. Okay, you do digital consultations. Okay, right. So you want to nurture that retail space within Kingston and that geographic area versus, I'm trying to see if anyone does. Okay, you also do digital consultations. So she's got two sides to her business. So for her digital consultations, she might also want to do all across Canada, talking about how to do and create this business model. So for one part of her business, it's going to be saved audiences. For the other part of her business, it might be lookalike audiences, it might be custom audiences and saved audiences. So it's going to be different combinations depending on your business model. Okay. I'm going to just skip over this. And then we're going to talk about special ad categories, and then we're going to take a break. All right, special ad categories. My students love when I talk about special ad categories, and so do my clients. Actually, they don't, because they're so, I want to say debilitating a little bit, but they can be difficult to navigate, and they are important to know. So special ad categories relate to ads within credit, employment, housing, or social issues. And it's more broad than what's actually been presented here. So things like housing, for example, that goes for anyone in real estate, mortgage brokers, any renters. So anything related to housing. Employment is related to jobs, job opportunities, professional certifications. It gets into a little bit of schooling as well, and post-secondary internships. So where people say, oh, it's, we're posting a job, just target it to people 30 plus, we can't do that. That option doesn't exist. Facebook will restrict your ad account if you start to do that. So it does need to remain broad. And then credit. This one also gets people caught off guard as well. So this goes for anything related to credit card offers. And I don't think anyone manages a credit card here aside from your own personal ones. Vehicle loans. So anything related to financing, long-term financing. And it restricts being able to do that type of marketing. So you do have to have a special ad category for all of these. And the reason that they do this is to reduce discriminatory marketing practices at specific groupings of individuals based on demographic characteristics and interests. Okay, so that goes for housing, basically real estate, mortgage brokers, home loans, home equity, home repair, folks, home repair. Credit. This is all the auto loans, anything with financing, even if you're going to buy a vehicle and it's financed at, 1%, that doesn't exist. Don't correct me, 2% or something. You can't do that. You can't do targeting. Same thing with your employment, anything job related, career opportunities, certifications, job boards, job fairs, cannot do additional targeting. So at that, we're going to take some questions. So I'm just going to take a minute. I'm just going to mute myself and I can review the questions. And then I see that Nadi's already put them there. So give me a moment. Okay. So the first question that we have, the best method to find an audience who only visit my area, specifically cottagers, don't know their actual location. Okay, so there's a couple different things that we can do here. So let's close this and bring this up. So that could be saved audience. And within saved audience, you could potentially use people recently in this location. So that could be one. So I know Tammy is up. Plebna, this is not in here. So we could say like kind of North Frontenac-ish. So these are specifically people recently in this location. So there are a number of ways to target people based on location. And to answer the question, it might be people recently in. So they could be tourists. The other one you could try is people traveling in this location. So this one is, they're within the selected area, but their home is 200 kilometers away. So you could do both. You could have both potentially, okay? That would be my suggestion for that one. Okay, so next question, question 2, how do you add and must also match feature? All right, so Kim is a retailer. So you come to enough webinars, I know your business, you don't even have to tell me. Kingston, Ontario. Let's just make this a bit bigger. Okay. It's only 3 questions. Okay. So Kim is asking, how do you add and must also match features? So that is under the detailed targeting. So Kim, I'm going to go, not clothing. Okay. So we're starting broad with you. And then narrow audience. So you're going to tap narrow audience. So it might be clothing and then maybe dresses. Let's say you focus on dresses. Okay. So they have to like clothing and they have to like dresses. So they have to like both. Depending on the designers that you have in your shop, sometimes they do appear here in the pick list, but they do have to be quite large. They have to be quite significant, but you could always check. So I wouldn't put it past them that you may be able to pick some of the designers. So if somebody has an interest in a specific line or design, then you could put that in here. Does that answer your question, Kim? Okay. All right. Third question. Once you create targeting, will that be saved so I can then use it? Nope, it will save. So as we go through this list, Tammy, so we'll just use this pretend one, Kingston, Ontario, narrow audience. Why won't it let me save? Oh, name my audience. Example for webinar. So you're going to save it every time you create. So example for webinar, and again, I'm going to call it Kingston clothing. So I know what it is. Okay. So now I've got an audience name and I'm going to create saved audience. And then what it's going to do, it's going to sit here. So I can access it at any time and I can update it or manipulate it at any time. Okay. Next question. So I'll take one more question after this. So if there's anyone who's thinking about a question, feel free to ask. Home repair. I would say home repair probably falls within that special ad category because you're going to have home in it. So I would be overly cautious, and I know your audience, Tammy, so I would keep it broad anyways. So you're going to keep it, I would keep it broad, and I would choose a special ad category because the last thing I want is for people to have a restricted ad account. Okay. All right. So we still have 22 people. This is great. I haven't lost anyone. That's great. All right. So as we go through the next section of the webinar, it'll probably be 10 to 12 minutes, and then we'll take some additional questions, and then you'll be good to go at 11:30. All right, so the next part of today's webinar is going to focus on A/B testing, and what does that really mean? I'm all about testing. I love analytics. So basically what it allows you to do is create 2 campaigns or 2 ads and change only one variable so you know what made the difference in the ad. So this could be an ad image. This could be the text. This could be where the ad appears, or the audience. But the key with A/B testing is to change only one variable so that you know what is making the difference in your ad. So it's kind of it's a fancy way to say testing. And the reason that you would do that, it might be that you're working with a graphic designer, you're working with a consultant, and they say, here's, 2 images or, 2 graphics. And you could say, let's use both and see which one works better. You don't necessarily have to choose one instantly, but you're going to pick, Facebook will pick which one works best for you. And it will help to refine that strategy moving forward. So there's a couple ways that you can do A/B testing. And again, I'll show you how to do this. It's not overly difficult. Let's just do it now. So we're going to go into create. A/B testing can be used across any of these campaigns. I'm going to say manual because I like control. And I'm just going to call this webinar example. This is where you select your special ad categories, everyone. Important, very, very, very important. So we can I'll just say employment. And then down here, this is where it says create A/B test. So what that's going to do is once you get through this entire campaign, it's going to bring up and give you options for what you want to test. So it will say, do you want to test the ad set or do you want to test the ad? And that will depend on if you want to test the audience or the actual graphics or text associated with your ad. Okay, so that's where that is. That's where that exists. So I'll go back to my webinar. The other way you can do that is through this test and learn category. I don't use this as much. I prefer just to toggle on the A/B testing, and then it will automatically create those different ad sets and ads for you within one campaign. So within here, you can test if you do have 2 campaigns going. So you can have campaign A and campaign B, and then determine which is going to work better. So you can always do that at any point. That's just another option for you. So that A/B testing is what I showed you earlier. It's as simple as toggling it on. So I do want to show you some examples of what that's going to look like. So once you toggle that on, you've got the option for creative. So that could be images, it could be your audience. And when we get into things like audience, you can't change more than one variable. So let's pretend you're a kayak shop and you want to change your audience. You're going to change your audience maybe from men to women, keeping the age the same and the interest the same. Or you could change the age brackets, keeping the gender and the interest the same. So you can't go and change multiple variables. For those of you who don't know, my background's economics, so this is like near and dear to my heart. Don't change the variables. Don't change too much. Same thing with creative. So they can't be drastically different, but enough different that people can see the difference. So I'm going to show you a couple examples. And sorry, this is blurry. This is what I was finding. So this example, you think there's not that much different. This is, I guess, a group that does graphic design. The text is the same. The image is the same. The only thing that's different is the color. That's it. And that's what they mean by changing one variable. It could just simply be the color of your graphic, because then you would know instantly the audience gravitates towards purple or they gravitate towards pink, for example, and that makes that decision easier. Or another example could be something like this. Again, same graphic, but now they've changed only the text. So we've got fast, simple, quality graphic design service. Okay. Or fast, simple, quality graphic design at 50% off. So again, you're going to know which works better. Do you want kind of more of a blanket statement, or do you need a stronger call to action with that 50% off promo? Okay. So I see a question. I'll get to it though. Okay. So testing that single variable is so important, because you want to look back and be able to say it was a color, it was a word, it was an additional graphic we did or did not include, or it was the gender or an age bracket. Because as soon as you start to have two variables, you think, was it the age or was it the location? Was it the interest or was it the graphic? You don't know. You can't figure it out. But then also you want to know what you're actually testing. So that measurable hypothesis, what did you want to get out of the A/B testing? You know, did you want to test the creative? Did you want to test demographics? So going in with that idea of what do we want to learn from this? Use an ideal audience. So you still want to refine your audience. So you don't necessarily want to have it so broad that you can't narrow it. But that time frame, great question, Louise. I'm going to answer that because I can see it. 7 to 10 days generally will give you the best results. You're not going to do it more than 30. You're not going to do it really under 7. You can do 3 to 7 days, but you may not get, I don't want to say the results that you're looking for, but you may not get enough data depending on your audience in general. So that 7 to 10 days is generally a good time frame. So an example of what you don't want to do is something like this. This is just far too many versions. You wouldn't be able to go back and say, oh, this one worked really well. That's great. But you don't know why. This is just too many versions. There's too many creatives. It's got different text on each. Well, 2 are the same. We've got different calls to action. We've got a subscribe versus offer ends. We've got different colors. There's pink and purple. There's, looks like people who identify male versus female in here. There's full body, there's half body. There's a lot happening in this. So again, there's small incremental changes that you would do in any of your testing that you would do. And then determining the winner. I like how they determine the winner. The winning campaign oftentimes is cost per result. So the lower the cost per result, the better, and that will determine the winner. Because that means that people are likely to take action on your call to action. If you're saying, come in to my shop and buy this product, and people are doing that, or it could be sign up to a newsletter or watch a video, that's what you want people to do. And the lower the price, the better it actually is. And that's the winner. That's generally how it's going to be. Okay. We are very much on time. Okay. So what we discussed today, and then we're going to do some questions. So we did talk about your ads targeting. So saved, custom, lookalike audiences, your special ad categories. So make sure to go back and review all those special ad categories. And then those A/B testing. So that's a little bit more advanced, but it is a consideration that you can do if you are looking for, looking to improve your ads on Meta. All right, so we are at question time. We got 5 minutes for question time. And I see that my colleague Nady has put in some questions. So we've got, does Meta provide live tracking of a person's location, such as people who commute? So it tracks you. It knows where you are. So depending on the permissions that you've given your device, it can track where you are. So if you have location tracking off, then no. If you have location tracking on, then yes. So depends on the person. With the new iPhone updates, there's less tracking that can be done. And tracking by that as looking at the different websites that you're visiting. So there's and apps that you're using. So there's less tracking, but it all depends on what permissions you have given the app. So be it Facebook, WhatsApp, or Instagram. Okay. So the next question is by Kim. If I want to test a picture as opposed to a video of the same product, is that a campaign choice? That's tricky. That would be a tricky one. So if you want to test the two, I probably wouldn't test a video against a still image. That's too different. But what you potentially could do is have two different ads running, one with the still image and then one with the video. Now, what I like to see within Facebook, Instagram ads is using, if you're doing a video, it's a video-based ad, so it will promote the video. You just get into different placement issues. I feel like they're almost two campaigns. I think we're into two campaigns, Kim, because you want video-based ads versus still graphics. Yeah, you're in two campaigns if you're going to do that. Can you offer any general guidelines, recommendations for how often to use paid ads? It depends on what you want to do. So you could have ads running every day, but they're only triggered when maybe people engage with you on Facebook, they're on your website. So it could be all the time, every day, but they're only triggered when people get into that audience. You could have ads running at a smaller budget, drawing people to your Facebook, Instagram, or website, and then having the remarketing. So you could have it almost all the time. It depends on budget, because you may also want to get into Google ads as well, which we're not going to talk about today, but you could get into Google ads as kind of the larger funnel and then use Meta as more of the retargeting and remarketing. So part of it does depend on your budget and how much you can invest into it. I hope that answers your question. Any other questions? Maybe Nady can put our social media accounts in there if you do want to follow us. She's going to frantically go find them. And if there's any last questions, and then you'll be out of here for 11:30. Okay, so Nady's saying Facebook. Okay, any last questions? And if not, then we will wrap up for today, and then you can continue on your Friday. Okay, well, thank you everyone for attending today's webinar. I hope you captured a few little gems out of today. There is a lot to know with Meta. I do wish I could cover all of it, but that would take probably 3 to 4 days. So today we had an hour, and I do hope you've learned a couple little gems out of it. If you did enjoy the webinar, please leave us a Google review, or a Google review actually would be best. That would be great. Thank you, everyone.